Now in this video what we'll do is we'll actually try to solve an equation. Alright, so here we have the same equation from last time. So we had the packet of lollies plus 3 lollies equals to 10. Remember, first we put that into number equations. That was p plus 3 equals 10. And from that we made it into word equations. So we said a packet and 3 lollies equals to 10. Now what we're going to try doing is trying to solve that equation. So what solving equations means is we're going to have that p, this p over here, which remember stands for packet. We're going to try to have that be by itself because we're trying to find the value of p. So we can write that as, so a packet of 3 lollies equals to 10. That's the worded equation. But we're actually going to try to find out how many lollies are there in the packet. So that's our question. So how many lollies are there in the packet? That is the actual thing we're trying to solve. That's why we're solving the equation, to figure out the number of lollies in the packet. So how many lollies are there in the packet? That's going to be our mission by the end of this. That's the question we're trying to solve. Right? And when we're trying to solve equations, that's what we do. We try to find some unknown. In this case, our unknown was the number of lollies in that packet. Now the rules are pretty straightforward. So I'll write my equation again. So the equation was p plus 3 equals 10. Remember, the idea behind all of this is that we want to find how many lollies are there in the p, right? So we want to find how many lollies there are in the packet. Now the aim of solving an equation, so I've written the aim here, so the aim is to have the polynomial be by itself on one side of the equation. Now that could be the left hand side or it could be the right hand side. In this example, we're going to try to have the polynomial, so the letter, be by itself on the left hand side, but it could also be the right hand side, doesn't matter. Alright, so that's our aim of solving equations, but how do we do it? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to find the inverse or the opposite operation. So remember, operation is just plus, minus, times, divided by. In this case, well, what do we try to move? We try to move the plus 3, right? So that's what we're trying to move, the plus 3. Now what's the opposite of plus? Well, if we're trying to move plus 3, the opposite of plus would be minus. And the rule is, once we've found our opposite, right, so the opposite operation of plus is minus, that's our inverse. What we have to do is we have to perform the inverse of that number on both sides of the equation. So not just on one side, but both sides. Why? Because an equation is an equal sign, so whatever we do to one side, we also do to the other side as well. So let's do minus 3 on one side, but then also on the other side. Now the reason why this works, remember, we're trying to get p to be by itself, but now we've done minus 3 to both sides. So what's happening here on the left hand side? We had p plus 3 beforehand. What is 3 minus 3? Right? So 3 minus 3, well, that's 0, which means now that cancels out. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to get p to be by itself. And now it is. Left with just p. Sorry. On the other side, well, we have 10 beforehand, but we have minus 3. So 10 minus 3 is 7. And now we figured out, through this quick one-step equation, how many lollies are there in that packet. And the answer to that question, or the equation, was, well, p equals 7, so that must mean there's 7 lollies in one packet. Now those rules we're going to go through a lot more, but that's the basics in terms of solving equations. First, the idea of solving equations was to have the polynomial be by itself. Could be the left hand side or by itself on the right hand side. Now how do we do that? Well, first we find whatever we want to move, we find the inverse. In this case, we wanted to move the plus 3 to get p by itself, and we did minus 3 to both sides. Once we found the inverse, we'll do that calculation on both sides, not just one side but both sides. So in this case, the inverse of plus 3 was minus 3, so we did minus 3 on both sides, and then we found, well, the plus 3 minus 3 cancels out, and we're left with 10 minus 3, which is 7, and we found that one packet contains exactly 7 lollies.